Well, it's time now for our press review, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Haxi.
You're starting us off with the devastating migrant tragedy off the coast of Calais in northern France. At least 27 people dying.
Yeah, it is a harrowing tragedy that is making the front pages of both the British and the French press today, and in some cases with some pretty strong political messages. Let's start with the French press. For Libération, the Channel has become deadlier than ever, with more migrants risking their lives in flimsy dinghies. The paper notes that France's interior minister called the deaths, quote, a moment of great mourning, and the president vowed that France will not let this narrow body of water become a cemetery. For Le Parisien, the tragedy is a wake-up call. It says that such devastating events and these very real deaths are a reminder that the words and vows of politicians to stop migrants, their words are so very often completely ignorant of the complexity of the issue. It's an issue that's coming up a lot at the moment because it's of the presidential election. The issue is one whose solutions lie, the paper says, on the European level and also in the countries of origins that these migrants are coming from, and not necessarily in just setting up temporary makeshift barriers.
And how, Solange, is this tragedy being treated in the British press today?
Well, like the French papers, there is a lot of shock, but there's also a lot of finger-pointing, which is somewhat in line with Boris Johnson's own take. As the Daily Mail notes, the British Prime Minister directly accused France by saying it's letting smugglers or gangs get away with murder. And in following with this notion that it is France's fault, the British commuter daily Metro asks, why did France not stop them, on its front page this morning? And The Guardian, well, it tells us that this stance of asking France to do more is an old one, that it mixes together French bashing, but also speaks to British concerns over immigration, but that actually lowering the number of illegal attempts to get to the UK with schemes like creating legal ways for people to get there and other solutions are currently not, the paper says, on the Tories' agenda, and likely, in their view, will not be anytime soon.
OK, well, we're moving now to Sweden, where the country's first ever female Prime Minister resigned less than 12 hours after getting the job, Solange.
Yeah, Politico takes us through this very dramatic day in Swedish politics and how Magdalena Andersson was narrowly selected, but was selected, and then she didn't get her budget passed in Parliament. Rather, her opponent's budget was backed. It was a historic few hours that the Swedish paper Svenska Dagbladet said could not have started worse or been a shorter reign for a prime minister. It was a political upheaval where it was actually a foreign reporter who concluded the questioning with the question, who is running the country now? Well, it may soon be Miss Andersson again. She may well, the paper says, the Swedish paper says, still be able to be chosen as prime minister under a one-party coalition without the Green Party's agenda that had been axed in her budget. But all of this is still very much up in the air, and it was nonetheless, the Swedish paper says, a day of ego-fighting politicians in Sweden.
OK, well, we're moving now to the United States, where papers are covering the jury's verdict on the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, a black man who was killed while out jogging in 2020.
Yeah, guilty, guilty, guilty. That is how the New York Times rings in the jury's decision that 3 white men were indeed guilty of killing the black jogger. But the Times opinion page notes that while the verdict is welcome news, there is still a long way to go until the U.S. justice system and society on a whole is no longer racially biased. And as a case in point of that, and as well because today is Thanksgiving in the U.S., Michael de Adder has drawn a cartoon on the subject of racism and thanks in America. He has a black family around a dinner table being thankful for video evidence. For in the trial and in many other cases, it's really come down to video footage to provide the undeniable proof that's often necessary.
And of course, that case only really came to public attention when that footage was leaked online. A slightly lighter note now. Firstly, happy Thanksgiving, Solange.
Happy Thanksgiving,
and staying with the Thanksgiving theme, you found a couple of articles about animals.
Yeah, this first one is from The Conversation, and it explains to us how turkeys got their names. It's actually because the birds were first introduced to Europeans in the 1500s when the Ottoman Empire was in full swing, hence the turkey reference. Now, the article has a ton of turkey facts. If you're into this, it's a good place to go. Like why in French they are called dinde, as they were first called Indian chickens, or poule dinde, which over time became dinde, poule dinde, Indian chickens. Now, the next article actually has nothing to do with Thanksgiving, but I thought it was kind of cool. Slate wonders if giraffes are more susceptible to getting struck by lightning, or whether their long necks make them an easy target for being hit by a lightning bolt in a storm. Well, the answer is not so much. There have been only 5 mortal cases of giraffes being hit by lightning. So statistically, no, they are not more susceptible. But the article does tell us that collateral damage, sideways lightning bouncing off and hitting sideways, and as well as falling trees, they actually can be an issue to giraffes, but also to much wider, bigger animals like elephants.
Okay, who knew?
Who knew, exactly.
Solange Pujol, that looks through the day's top stories. Thank you very much.